Okay, so we're here to figure out how the GitLab experiment context is being showing up in Snowflake for dedicated and self-managed instances when we only feel like it should only be showing up on GitLab.com. I have sort of an idea of where to look first for this, but yeah, we're going to try to figure that out now. Uh, all right. So maybe I'll just drive and we can look at this stuff together. I'm trying to close all my windows so I can properly share my screen and make this video hopefully public. Um, all right. So the message came in that like I just said, it was events are showing up. And so first of all, what I want to look at is backend, but I don't think they're coming from the backend. The message I got was not actually showing me actual events yet. They were just saying, "Hey, I see it," and they did a little SQL query against Snowflake and showed that I got the counts, right? So they're in a different time zone. It's going to be probably a day before I hear back on like my follow up, which was, "Can you show me what events?" type of thing. But that got me thinking. I feel like I have an idea where it might be happening, but I want to verify what I know in the back end and then go to the front end and kind of explore that. Um, all right. Okay. So as we know for the back end, when we come to we look at the initializer in GitLab experiment, it tells it how to track when we call the experiment DSL. So this is where it's defined. Um, and this is how events get from the back end. And we also know um, that the Glex gem and that the DSL it comes from is observing the should track method, which we override a little bit here um, in our version of application experiment or application experiment base that all experiments inherit from or get anonymously created from if you don't have an experiment class file. Um, so all right. Let's go to, I think there should be a should track in here somewhere. What am I looking at wrong here? I think I'm looking at I need to look at hmm, trying to find, maybe it was percentage, RB, rollout. There's something, okay, I need to look back here, sorry. I think I'm trying to figure out where that is defined, and I feel like it may be defined here. My first look was not it. So da, 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 enabled. Maybe it's back in the gem and it's just looking at enabled. I feel like there's a should track somewhere that I remember seeing, but I may be remembering it only from the gem. Yeah, it may only be in the gem. Let's go. Running experiments. There it is. It's talking about in the docs. So it's probably back in the gem. Let's go look at it there. Uh, let's see if I can look at it through here. Let's go to that. Okay. So let's see if I can find it in here. Should track should be basically based on if it's enabled. That's what I'm looking to confirm here.
Yeah, I'm also seeing some spec
There it
in
is.
GitLab.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah.
There it is, right? Context.trackable and not excluded, right? So we didn't, I sometimes forget where these things are fine. So we had no reason to override it because we override enabled. So if we can override enabled, if they're not excluded, if it's not trackable, I don't know what is actually defined in trackable. I don't think that provides us any flavor. Go ahead, Rory, were you saying something?
I also see something mentioned should track in the application experiment spec in GitLab.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, the
Maybe it's the EE one.
no, the regular one.
Okay.
See-
Okay. Make context. Okay. Like no snowplow event. Yeah, I mean, it really, yeah. When it mocks it out like that, it doesn't really help, right? Doesn't track if we shouldn't track. Okay. That's just saying we observe the library thing and have it overridden, I guess. So should track is enabled. Does enabled, I'm trying to figure out like um if we're not on GitLab.com, will this run, right? Uh from the back end to understand. And I feel like this is telling me feature flag defined. We know that. That's going to be defined on every single instance because that's the YML file, I believe, right? Available. What is available? Okay, what's available? Uh, false-ish. That will tell it like all CE instances. That'll mean CE instances don't get it, right? If we go to application experiment in the EE folder, it should be some other logic. There it is. Experimentation. So we know that SaaS feature available checks, right, are only GitLab.com, right? Because it's basically GitLab.com question mark, right? Uh, so that should mean that from this standpoint, we're going to get false here. And then this is our kill switch basically for turn all experiments off in case Glex is causing some sort of a problem, right? That came out of a an outage uh, that we had. So I feel like that solidifies for me that like I know at least the backend events aren't going to get that context because we're not going to track. Does that
Is the SaaS not include dedicated? This-
no, because it's a GitLab.com is a URL check in the end. So if we look at SAS.rb, I think, and here it'll be there should be a where is GitLab.com question mark defined? Self.com question mark. Uh, it's, our simulate SaaS, which is what we use for dev, right? And then it's to match our, it either has to match our com URL, which
Okay.
is, probably should, won't ever match it. Um, and you can see the simulate one says only in development. And then the GL subdomain, I don't know. Let's look at that. Because that one, I don't know how dedicated is whatever, right? Is set up. Let's look at the regex. Yeah, subdomain. I don't know if dedicated's how they're like named on the website, but like being that he's seeing it self-managed too means that I know those ones aren't, right? So I'm going to say we ignore that for now as like a lower
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
And what I want to look at is so that kind of confirms to me, at least from the back end, that we're probably not getting them from the back end. I'd be very surprised right now from the information given to us so far, which was just him doing a count off a Snowflake database, that the context exists. So is what he's seeing this, this show up. And this is only, I'm going to double check this, is only defined right well, it should be maybe defined here and maybe on the front end. Let's see. Yeah, there's the front end, right? Um, so what I think is happening when I first like saw like, oh, let me check that is that somehow there's no guard of enabled, or should track is not being observed in the front end. That's my thought. And I'm going to try to like prove that one way or the other here. Uh, so we could go spelunking through the code and see if we can find and verify it quick, and then like verify what we think it is by somehow making my GDK instance emulate not being .com basically, and having the feature flag in an off state, which the state shouldn't matter. And then or we can just or we can go try to prove it by looking at an exact use. I think maybe the hotspot experiment may be the easiest to reach here. I'm not sure of the ones that are active. And prove it and then go back and look at the code and see how it's being added in. Which way? Anybody have an opinion?
I was just looking at experiment underscore tracking.js. I'm not sure if that's the actual call site, but that might be, I don't know if that's the only spot that it's defined, but just taking a quick look at that, it seems a little worrying, or it seems like, yeah, we're not checking, but
Yeah, let's look at like I think the real key is this. Whoever calls this is like you said, it may not be the only place, but I do feel like wherever this is used, that's probably going to be all the cases, depending on
uh,
what's right, because that's like
right. And then we check data if data is empty underneath, and that's how we skip the track. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
The sidebar experiment, I was just looking for where that's called. I see it in a spec, but I don't see sidebar. So if you do a code search for sidebar underscore experiment, you'll get like a line in a spec, but I don't see where we're actually calling that anymore in the code, at least on that string. So um,
Yeah. We did have like a null experiment that's supposed to stay in the code base to handle these types of things. I think I don't know what this is doing here without looking at it more. If it's just, it doesn't matter if it's just stubbing it to, make it
mhm.
whatever. I would ignore that for now. I do know we have two ways to get the experiment context on in view without looking at the docs right now. Is that we could just provide experiment to the regular non-internal event tracking. I don't know if we've added it to an internal event tracking yet. I don't think so. But if we do, I don't think we're using it because we are using in the back end still the old tracking. So um, we have two ways of doing it, right? Either calling experiment tracking as a mixin itself, or adding the experiment as a object key to the regular tracking, and it will both of those will be able to figure out how to add on that context. I think Roy, you've dabbled in that recently ish. Does that match with what?
Yeah.
Let's see. Uh, I'm trying to find it here, right? Because you can see like that's is that the one I was just looking at? Trying to find the generic place where it's added in to, yeah, there's this a different utils file. Too many utils in the same place. Very confusing. Um, okay, so this is, I think, what will show it adding on for when you use just the regular, say old tracking, but non-internal event tracking without using experiment tracking mixin itself. You could use the old tracking mixin and then just provide it the experiment key. And then I sometimes love it to do it that way because if it converts, all I have to do is like remove that experiment key and like, I don't have to change like which module I'm mixing in. So that's what this I think provides. Um, and this will do the adding of the experiment context, which I feel is called somewhere. It's probably called outside of here somewhere by the tracking.js probably. Let's see. There it is, right? Import. And this is how it's added in for that tracking option refactor potentially defined. Okay. Right. So that's how it's added into the tracking options, and that's what allows us to put like experiment and that on the regular tracking mixin, and it'll add it on. So one of these things is adding it. I feel like one of these things isn't observing um, should track, and we should be. I feel like that's my guess right now. And I guess, for should track to be observed, it would have to be passed through gone to the window because that's how we're doing these things. But to do that, I think I have to figure out like what is the trigger right now for adding the experiment context. Um, I guess this dot I don't know if it's that. Maybe it's more like in here. Maybe get experiment data. It has that logic. If experiment.
Yeah, I don't think it does, but maybe inside get experiment data, they show it grabbing from the two locations that are on window, gone
There
and
it
the
is.
new one
Yeah.
GL. Yeah. So maybe we're not setting them on window because it seems like it'll just grab, but maybe that's the if condition, right? If
Yeah.
but we have to yeah, I haven't found where we're setting gone or GL
You look at the
uh
gone helper.
gone helper. Nice. Okay.
My guess is it should be here because if they're getting it, it's gonna have to. I don't know. I have to see which one. Depends on
What is
like.
sorry, what is gone?
Gone is some sort of construct that we didn't come up with it, right? We're using it as a way to forward things onto the window as like a global thing. We put the help URL there from the back end, things like that to pass on. This is how we put the experiment if it's enabled or not to there. That's how we know if it's candidate or not. We pull it off, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So that's our way to get like global data to the front end. Um, Okay, I don't see it in here. That's probably in the EE one. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
I remember seeing in a Haml file that
Yeah, I know what you
was
mean. So I'm looking
pushed.
for, right, HTML HAML, probably in the layouts directory. There it is. And we're putting it on right here. And we could probably, as a side note, we could probably get rid of this either or condition here. We initially put it on here for like before Glex or before we may have been after Glex, but then we refined it to be scope it to GL, which is GitLab scope type of a thing, concern. So we could probably, as a side note, delete this. Um, okay, published experiments. All right, this is where it goes right here. And so inside of here, data excluded. Ooh. Um, publish experiments. Request store. Okay. Well, that doesn't really help me that much. The thing is, like, I feel like I know what in this code, but I forget it. I feel like a deja vu sometimes. Um, let's look at the library. Where was that library opened at? Collapse. Collapse. Should be open down here somewhere. I could just click here. There it is. Okay. Yeah, just a request store. Come on, man. That just allows us to not like, redefine it for a request type of thing. I don't want def. I just want publish experiments. What is going on here? Maybe it's like, where is this getting it from? How's it being populated. Okay. I'm just trying to see like what it's observing to understand like if we have a bug or if we're just missing an implementation, you know. If so excluded is just the excluded stuff. I don't think I think. Okay. All right. So I think that we need to somehow work this logic into the front end then. If that's like, so this is publishing the experiments, as Roy is saying, it's in the HAML. Here it is. This is what puts it on Gone. For us, or our version of Gone or whatever we're calling it. It's actually not in Gone, actually. It's just on the window here. It was on Gone. So slight adjustment there in what we were talking about. So this is what puts it there, and this is why it's being pulled off. I don't see anything in here. It says excluded. Excluded is more about like, as you know, the exclusions, right? It's not about the other thing. Like if something is excluded, it should not track, right? That's part of just the should track logic, right? The thing is we are not observing the rest of should track, basically. Uh, and I feel like this is the reason why, right? We need to do something like gosh, um, put in some logic here that says like, don't even put these on. You know, I feel like we could add yet another thing to the window, Geo, which is something like, you know, should track experiment or something like that, right? And then observe it in the JavaScript. But I feel like we should, it'd be better just to deny them altogether of even going to the window if should track is false. And then we don't even have to deal with modifying JavaScript because it just won't find them.
Mhm.
Isn't there a step that we have to do in controller that like for feature flag you have to push them to the front end to consume?
Right,
Do
but we
do we
don't
have
have
anything for experiment? I forgot.
this is just the override, like where you'd have to do it little by little for those, right? You know, like as you need. These ones are just like, since it's called publish experiment, it's called by the application layout in the end, it just throws them all out there on every single request
Okay.
and it puts it on the window. So there, yeah, I was mixed up by saying gone. I shouldn't have said gone, because as you see, like we went away from this is what I remembered, right? This is how we used to do it. And I think we had on the application controller, we pushed it or something like that, or put it in the publish experience. But when we introduced the gem, we went, you know, this route and went with publish experiments.
Mhm.
And but at the time, either we didn't either we used to have should track observance in there somehow, or we never did. And you know, should track and it got removed somehow during the iterations, or we never did. I think more like we never did. Um, but it was never an issue because snowplow, you only get tracking if snowplow is set up. Now though, with their whatever they're doing to get events from self-managed and hosted, somehow they're getting them. They're showing up either like I don't quite fully understand what switches that logic for them. I thought they had to have a metrics file or something. I don't know. Um, but I feel like we need to stop this right here. That would be what we need to do.
Mhm.
This bothers me just because RubyMine tells me it bothers me. Um, so how do we approach this? Should we go prove it out more, do you think? Or do you think this is enough proof that we can like handle the proof this is enough to validate the problem validation and think of a solution and then prove it out actually during this is enough to say we do, I think there's a 99% chance I understand where this issue is.
I agree with that. Normally I'd want to TDD this, but I think the only way we could properly TDD this is with a feature spec, because this is crossing the back and front end kind of divide.
Yeah.
I guess we could do it just with a back end spec if we check to see what was in scope, like check gl.experiments, but we're gonna have to reach into that page and
Yeah.
like so that might do it. But anyway, I guess I would prefer my first thought is like TDDing this might be useful because then we can then we'll have our specs written by the end. But
Yeah, I mean, I think we can definitely we're definitely going to prove it out, right? But
Yeah.
should we drive by TDD here, or can we just make a solution and then verify why we, that was the issue, with the high chance that we're not doing throwaway work? That's the question. We should definitely
Uh,
verify, during our implementation.
I'm interested to see like what experiment they got in the content because I tried like calling GL experiments in console before. It's pretty like I don't get a lot of like unrelated experiment.
What do you mean unrelated?
Uh, well, like
The one
when
you
I'm
haven't seen like from the
yeah.
page. For example, like experiment from other page, you usually don't see them when you
Oh,
investigate
okay.
in like window GL experiments.
Okay.
But in that case, I'm not sure how they got on other instances.
So does that mean like if we go to if you have an experiment turned off,
Mhm.
but if you go to that page that has that experiment, you will still get experiment in the GL, Windows.gl.
Yeah, you'd have to look at this published logic, right? Where's yeah, you have to look at publishing behavior. Uh, yeah, unless it's excluded, and nothing's excluded if it's off, unless it's, off is just off. Excluded is another concept, right?
Yeah.
So they should, whatever's defined, should show up in GL experiments, I believe. I think.
Like we can we quickly see that like maybe
Yeah.
like disable the lightweight registration flow and then go to like the child registration page.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to turn off sharing for a second, and just because I don't know what window I'm showing right now. Uh, and I'll share it now. Okay, so let's
I have staging
okay,
like lightweight trial experiment if we want to see that. But
go
Roy,
ahead.
did you want to? Okay, yeah, I can share for a sec.
Isn't staging has it on?
It has it on, yeah. So I have the on case. Did you
Well,
want to see what happened? And then if you run it on a page that the GL experiment is not on, I see nothing in GL.experiments.
You see nothing there.
Yeah, I can show that
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that's
well
Let's show like because I don't.
that seems like expected.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would expect it to for the window GL experiments to have all experiments that are defined in the code.
Yeah, so did
Or
I, but
maybe it's the only the ones that are being hit on the page. I don't know.
yeah, it seems more so if I go to well, I guess let's see I'm not sure if this is on sign in. Okay, so let's just do the signed
Uh-huh.
in. We're on the page, and if we look at GL experiments, we see the lightweight
Okay.
with candidate and kind of all of that, all of the expected information.
Uh-huh.
And
So
now,
only the ones that are probably the DSLs triggered on the page. Or,
yeah, and now if I just log in and go to a normal page, oh, come on.
or it has been defined at least once in the request response cycle or something. I don't I don't know. What's that? I don't know. So it's like
On a normal page, yeah, I don't see it,
hmm,
which suggests there's more complexity happening that maybe we're not.
yeah, then how is it getting in there? If you like, you'd have to go local here to test this, but like if we were to not simulate SaaS locally, get into the case where it's like self-managed instance, right? and either by commenting out some code or whatever, in those should track context. We could do it. What will GL experiments be on the trial registrations page? Does anybody have GDK open up where they can go to the trial registrations page and like modify their local to just take out that little bit about, the .com,
We may have to find another experiment because like the child registration new is not on self-managed,
but
right?
that's okay. You can just comment out that controller
Oh, okay.
uh thing, but actually, yeah, you can do that. All right.
But trial registration is not available on if it's not SaaS, right?
I mean, just go to the controller and comment out that logic, right? That before filter, action.
All right, so we're saying, yeah, so I can probably do this. But there's a before action
On the
and
trial registrations controller, there should be some kind of before action there that checks to make sure we're on .com.
uh,
Or you don't even have to come off of .com. You just need to go to the experiment rollout uh, file and comment out something in the enable check to make it, look like it's disabled for .com. It will be in the experiment feature rollout RB.
feature rollout.
Sorry, experiment underscore feature underscore rollout, if that helps.
Yeah, experiment feature rollout.
Okay, now in that enabled file, I think if we just do get rid of comment, turn that second false to true. Now, what will that do? I can't read unless.
Yeah.
Maybe just change yeah, there you go. Or maybe just the original and just change the unless to an if. Yeah, that my brain is better on that. And I
Okay.
think that will make it so it feels like what we should be getting in that. And then you can
Do we
look.
need to restart GTK?
No, no. It may be in the initializer where that's being observed.
Okay, I can
Just for giggles, just to be sure.
yeah, I just dropped and restarted the Rails server.
Cool.
So I'm just going for that. Okay. Reload. Okay, we just got candidate. I mean control.
Yeah, that's what we should be getting, right?
Yeah, we have nothing in
Uh-huh.
there. Yeah, okay. Do we need to get,
Huh.
yeah,
Interesting.
so it's empty.
So that kind of negates. What about just for giggles? The gone.x.
Oh yeah. Was it gone dot, it was gone dot experiment, I think.
Was it? Yeah, what was it?
The other one's experiments.
Yeah, gone.experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see either. So
Okay. All right. Did we miss something by hacking what we just hacked to verify for us? Okay, if it's feature flag defined, that's a good one. False unless enabled. I think it's default in. Well, we want false, right? So false if it's enabled. So we want to simulate the enabled. Now the question is, I assume that means that proves that we don't know.
Well, it proves at least it's um the context is not getting from the GL experiment, right? Maybe there's other ways for the content. So
Yeah.
It's
I
not
mean,
a
that's
like
the only in the code. That's the only two places, right? From the back end. And we know the back end is controlled by the should track. Whenever we call the experiment DSL, it basically says, don't the dot track is observed by that. I wonder if this is a default assignment somehow, but that should only be happening if should track is true. Anyways, uh, so I still don't feel like it's the back end. Uh, so the front end, but then the front end is controlled by the published experiments, right? We feel like strongly about that now. And if it's not published, which means what? Published is only published if it, I guess, we'd have to look at the complexity of it, but like if it's, where does publish come from? That's, I think we need to look at that more because that's what's controlling this right now, right?
Mhm.
And so if we look at here
You
to
can add binding and just investigate what publish,
This is
like
doing
yeah, you could
source code.
is published inside defined in.
publish experiments.html.haml. But I feel like that's going to show you false. It's going to show you nothing basically. Um,
But you can like method defined and see where source code stuff like that.
Yeah, this is what. What do I have to
I,
do to do
I
this?
think before JavaScript tag,
Right, and
because
then
it's just plain. Yeah, that should work.
right, and
publishing behavior.
okay. So then we have so that's empty. And what's the call to get the source location? It's
I just after application experiment dot, I just enter method and then no, before the published experiments.
oh, you
And
go
published experiments, yeah, it's as key, right? A
like
symbol key, yeah.
yeah.
That's and
So it's in the gem.
Yeah.
That can't be right. Really? Oh, published experiments, request store.
that's the same. So
Publishing behavior.
Yeah. So, and then if I had called this, if we enable the experiment, then this will have our experiments in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, because you have that, hack in the code right there where
Yeah. But if I remove that hack in the code, so we enable the experiment, then
I don't, I mean, yes, on SaaS.
yeah, on SaaS, right?
What I'm looking at right now is this initializer template file in the gem where we're defining publishing.
I think sorry, I think that when we just disabled that one flag for feature, we're not fully like switching to something else besides like .com, because I manually started server locally with GitLab simulate SaaS to false, and when I with it any page, GL experiments returns undefined, not empty object. So there are probably some other initializers which still works because we disable it only like adding keys to that published store, but store still exists and still initialized somewhere in the code, I think.
You mean GL experiments?
Yeah.
Undefined is strange.
Yeah, we should get like, so David should be seeing undefined, but you're saying we're seeing it actually create something.
Yeah, and I guess that's because we not like fully switching to self-manage or something besides .com, but only disabling this experiment flag.
Well, I mean, if you look at the published experiments, it's always going to give something back, right? Jason thing, there's nothing in there saying don't run that hand, don't put something in GL experiments. I mean, don't define GL experiments, right? So if you look at that published experiments .html haml, just because it comes back blank doesn't mean it's not going to be there, right? So that's why it's there.
Do
Uh,
you, hey, do you even get, do you see, if you look at the GL, do you have a key for experiments or do you have
No.
no key? Okay, so this
so,
key,
so
this file's not even running then.
yeah, can you unshare? I think I found where this is in the gem. So, so this is in the gem. If you don't define publishing behavior, you get this one. And so you can see we're leaning back on track, and track does observe should track, which is where we have our enabled logic, right? So that's why. Let's see how I track this back. So the publish experiments is based on this, and it says publish behavior. It's this exact publish behavior, and then I don't know what's going on here, but um, publish behavior is defined here, and it just says track. I think that's what publish experiments is based on. Let's see, publish GitLab, it gets filled out. So publish experiments gets filled out by this. So whenever you run the block on a page, it adds to the store for publish experiments, which is what that publish experiments is calling, right? Um, and so that's what's filling this out. Uh, so publish behavior is adding that track, right? That's how we get that track assignment by default when we run the block, right? And then while we're doing that on the publish, we fill out this. So because we do not, so publish experiments gets filled out by during the request response cycle if you've ever called the block.
Right. Okay. That's how it's limiting the list to only experiments that are active on that page. Got it.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so this is just by the way, track here. And is this saying like then publish is probably controlled by an enabled check would be my guess. Some sort of enabled check. Let's see. It's either we either override it or or it's defined in here.
And so the ramification of that is you can't use client side experiment tracking if you don't have at least one block server side that occurred during the render of that page.
That seems to be true, but I don't understand how that works. Um, because this seems to be a replacement, right? It's not like adding to it. Like, if you hit it on a page before this one type of thing, you're going to get it on there. It seems like a pure straight up replacement. But also, though, if you look at the request store, is request store thread based? Or what's it based on, right? I think it's based on it's all about like, what's the scope of this during the request response cycle, right? I guess. Even then though, it doesn't matter. Um, how would we even get like front end events if this didn't, it seems like this looks like it only works if you run the experiment block on your page,
Mhm.
right? But I don't, I've seen front end events come out where I don't think we had any DSL being called.
Yeah, I don't think we don't have any front end events right now for us to check. right? Like all we have is the hotspot, and I don't think there's any calls for that currently.
There's nothing on the front end for the hotspot, I guess?
I just based off of that
Tracking
search I did
events?
previously.
Yeah,
I think we have tracking events for hotspot experiment.
on the front end in Vue.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you know how to?
But
Yeah.
you need to do agentic to be active locally to so that so yeah, we can stop it with like a bunch of returns, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I don't think we fully figured anything out here, other than we don't know. It kind of feels like we kind of proven out from David's thing there, that disable, and making it act like self-managed in the enabled check keeps it from going on publish experiments. And that makes sense if we look back at publish, because publish gets called in experiment DSL block. And that will put it on there. I'm not sure the scope of the request store. It feels like it's more than one request, but I think it's only for one request. Hence the name. But then how would our front end events even be working on pages where we don't call it in the back end at least, which is kind of like what Roy was saying with the gone pushing stuff that we do explicitly. I wonder if we have something on the application controller where we're pushing things, somehow. Just looking for the word push. There's set current context. That's not right though. I'm just looking for words like experiment, something like that in application controller. I feel like there's like a piece of the puzzle we're missing here, in figuring this out. We're just not seeing. Application controller.rb. I want the EE version of it. Nothing in there. I feel like we're missing something there though. Hmm. I think I need to dig into this more to understand it. And I think maybe I need to see like at this point, I'm not even sure what he's saying is true. Or I don't see, he just showed me the counts. He needs to actually show me an event. And then feel like I'm not chasing a ghost.
Is it possible for us to look at snowplow events in production or staging without requesting like backend access? Is there like a dashboard or some? I
Yeah,
was
you should be able to. We used to in Periscope. I don't know what Tableau or what, or if we have direct Snowflake access or what. Like, how do we get like what he was doing? Which was basically showing me a select SQL statement.
Mhm.
Maybe it's in the docs somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I looked at the docs and it seemed like throughout time there was people talking about it and like adding it, but there was I couldn't find a URL. They were just kind of roughly talking about it, and then those docs changed and things like that. So it seemed like maybe something that is and is not true over GitLab's lifespan, but yeah, okay. I'm working on another, yeah, I have a similar problem, so maybe
Yeah.
I'll find it through that.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to got another thing to go to here in a few minutes. If anybody clears on like, checking this out a little bit more or is interested, feel free. I'm going to wait for him to come back with something before I get time to look at this again further. But like, if you really want to dig into this and understand how that publish experiments is getting populated across requests without actually getting a DSL call from the back end, then please let everybody know. I'll post this recording